Every week, viewers vote for your choice online in our Friday lightning round poll. And this week, the Romney tax accusations from the Democrats won with 33% of the votes. So, before we start our discussion, let's have a little bit of the back and forth.
The word's out that he hasn't paid any taxes for 10 years. Let him prove that he has paid taxes, because he hasn't.
Harry Reid really has to put up or shut up, all right? So, Harry, who are your sources? Let's have Harry explain who that is. And by the way, Harry, I understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to deflect the fact that jobs numbers are bad.
And by the way, Romney did go on to say in his statements today that it was patently false, it was wrong, he's paid taxes, and he said a lot of taxes. So, Charles, is this just more pressure to get him to release those returns?
Yes, it is. But when the leader of the Senate begins an accusation with the word is out, it's beyond appalling, it's disgusting, which is a word you ought to use rarely in politics. It is the worst kind of demagoguery where he makes an accusation without any basis whatsoever on a blind source which he won't tell us about, and then say, you prove it and deny it. That's the lowest kind of politics, and the reason it's disgusting is because it actually is effective. It puts Romney on the defensive. It's lose-lose if you're Romney, because he's talking about taxes, which is exactly what Reid had intended in response to a baseless accusation. It works. Well, that's why it's so bad.
But, Susan, does it in any way gain some sympathy points for Romney?
I would think so. I was astonished when I saw that, because this is potentially a powerful issue for the Democrats. It's not going to move a lot of votes, but people are wondering, why do we only have 1 year? We're going to get another year. There is a sense, I think, that there's something in there he doesn't want people to see. I'd be very surprised if it was that he paid no taxes. I suspect it was that he maybe, I suspect I shouldn't say that, but it may be that he didn't pay as much in taxes because he legally took advantage of some very, very legal tax breaks, or it may be that he was getting paid by Bain when he said he wasn't doing day-to-day work, something that he doesn't want people to know, but I'm sure, I can't imagine that it was illegal or no taxes. But to come out and say, you know, word on the street is whatever, just it's an overreach, it looks reckless, it looks like, you know, rumor mongering, and we've seen enough of this, frankly, among our profession and among some other people at a much lower level in politics for the Senate Majority Leader to go on the floor of the Senate and say something like that without backing it up, I think actually undermines what could have been one of the Democrats' most powerful weapons against Romney.
But it has us, Steve, talking about his taxes.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, Harry Reid is a disgrace, but you expect this from Harry Reid, right? I mean, he does this kind of thing. He's a politician. That's what you expect from politicians. The disappointing cohort in this, to me, is journalists. I mean, I was watching another network earlier today, and I saw, I was, every once in a while, my satellite was out, I couldn't get Fox. But I saw another network anchor ask a Romney supporter about this accusation and say, you know, Harry Reid is a really honorable man. You should answer this. And by the way, there's one way to settle this question, and that's for Mitt Romney to put his taxes out. That is exactly what this kind of a baseless, absurd charge is going to bring about, and he's having to answer questions about it all day. It's ridiculous.
Right. I want to make sure that we get to our other topics. So let's move on to the jobs numbers. 163,000 jobs added, but the unemployment rate ticked up as well. Quickly, Steve, your reaction, 8.3% now.
Well, I think the rate, to the extent that people are paying attention to this specifically and at this time, the rate doesn't help. But I was struck by President Obama's comments today. He gave a speech and he said, what we really need to do is modest raise of taxes for the top 2%. And then a moment later, he said, by doing just this tiny increase of the top 2%, we're going to save $1 trillion and we're going to help resolve our debt issues. I mean, you can't make those arguments in consecutive paragraphs.
Well, and the White House today, Susan, did say, hey, we're talking about 29 months of consecutive private sector job growth. There are positives there.
True. There are, but what I've found when I've traveled around the country is that people have an idea of what the economy feels like, and it's kind of set in their mind. So I was in Ohio. The unemployment rate is lower than average, and people are just really distraught. I was in Nevada, where the unemployment rate is astronomically high, and people, I wouldn't say they're upbeat, but they have more of kind of a, I don't know, there's sort of more of a homesteader attitude out there, maybe more of a, you know, hey, I lost $3,000, but here's another slot machine. I mean, people just sort of are more ready to start over there, I think, because they're newer, you know, residents to the state. So I think that the rate itself isn't necessarily determinate. It's just how people feel about the economy, and that's usually pretty much set by Labor Day. I think this year might be set earlier.
Charles, it's on, so we can get to topic 3.
The rate itself is not the key. It's the rate of change, and it's going in the wrong direction. It rose, and that's what I think hurts Obama. The chief economist of Credit Suisse said to the Times today, the New York Times, that this is the worst recovery ever, including during the Great Depression. He said if you aren't scared by that, you don't know what's going on. Pretty heavy, as we used to say.
It's always nice to have someone who is fluent in French on the panel as well. Our final topic, the GSA scandal.
Credit Suisse.
It's very nice. It rolls off the tongue. The GSA scandal and the fact that there may be now 77 additional events, conferences that they're going to be investigating. Steve, how do they dig out of this one?
It is an incredible story. The funny thing is, the big picture political impact, this is, you're not actually talking about a ton of money. All of it's big money, but relative to our $15.7 trillion debt, you're not talking about a lot of money. What you're talking about is a culture, and the fact that they're so oblivious to how this looks to taxpayers is truly extraordinary.
Susan?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I can't say it better than Steve. It just also gives a black eye to sort of government workers in general, which is unfortunate because, there's a lot of people working in government who work very hard and do a great job, and this is just appalling.
And it hurts Democrats, deserve it or not, because Democrats are the party of government, and everyone knows that you've got to cut spending, but the Democrats speak about raising the taxes. You hear about this, and you think they're barking up the wrong tree.
$20,000 for drumsticks and an appearance by Agent X, whoever that may be. Panel, thank you very much. Stay tuned.